I know Altcoin Daily, we've had hundreds of thousands of new subscribers just in this last year. For the new people, could you clearly explain how Bitcoin goes from 100K per coin today to 13 million per coin by 2045?
Well, we have to start with first principles. Bitcoin is the world's first perfect monetary asset, and by perfect I mean hard capped at some fixed amount.
Well, it's not a monetary asset. I don't think so. I mean, first he calls it digital gold, then he calls it digital currency and digital asset, and now he's calling it a monetary asset. It's nothing. Bitcoin, all it is, Bitcoin, it's a speculation. And I'm gonna say one thing: the name of Bitcoin, it appears like it is indeed a coin or it is money, but it's not a coin. And the logo shows a golden coin, like if it was gold, but no, it's not gold either. So it's very misleading, the logo of the Bitcoin. And what is saying now that it's valuable because it is scarce, but that is not the reason why it's valuable. If it was indeed valuable, that's not the reason, because tomorrow I can come up with my own coin and I can cap it at 1 million units that will ever be mined, and no one is gonna buy it. No one is gonna buy it, and my coin too is going to be capped, but no one is gonna buy it. So it's not, the value of the Bitcoin is not because it's scarce. Gold has value, and I'm not a big fan of gold either, but gold has a intrinsic value because it can be used in electronics, jewelries, microchips, etc.
Every other monetary asset you could use as a long-term store of value has some leakage or inflation in it, whether it's gold or silver or real estate or art or whatever it is. There's entropy, there's degradation, and so the...
Yeah, I know where he's going with this. He's saying that everything else, like real estate, stocks, owning a business, all of it, it's got entropy. And Bitcoin does not have entropy. He's saying that. So how is it that Bitcoin doesn't have entropy? Because to mine a Bitcoin costs 300 grand in the United States. So it's not even worthwhile to mine a Bitcoin in the United States. And there are a lot of countries like that. In order to be where the Bitcoin is worthwhile, you gotta go to Libya. Countries like that. And of course, the Bitcoin too is connected to having power, having a Wi-Fi connection. So what happens if the price of power goes up, and now in order to mine a Bitcoin is gonna go up the premium? So what is it gonna do? So Bitcoin has entropy as well, not to mention all the scams, all the frauds, that if you forget your key, you're gonna lose your Bitcoin, all the hackers, so they can get into your wallet, and then you gotta rely on the crypto exchanges. So Bitcoin too has entropy.
The ideal perfect monetary asset would be some fixed amount of something for the next 1,000 years or 10,000 years. And so Bitcoin's the first thing like that. Even things we think that are scarce, like real estate, we can make more real estate. We make more waterfront property even. Half of Boston and half of Miami Beach is man-made waterfront property. So you start with that idea of scarcity. So why does it go up in value? It goes up because the supply of dollars is increasing 7% a year for the past 100 years, and the supply of weak currencies is more like 14% a year, and that means the dollar loses 99.9% of its value over 100 years. A weak currency would lose 99.9% of its value sometimes over 20 years.
But it's not only fiat currencies that go to zero. Sooner or later, everything is going to go to zero, including the Bitcoin. All currencies went to zero sooner or later. It's not only fiat currency. All the methodologies the human beings used to trade, all of that went to zero. There was the tulip mania in the Netherlands in the 18th century. That too went to zero. So it's Bitcoin included. Everything is gonna go to zero, and especially the Bitcoin, because what prevents from another guy like Satoshi Nakamoto come up with a new technology, and all of these Bitcoiners are gonna sell their Bitcoin by the bulk to buy the new technology? Because now we know that there is a huge market for cryptocurrency. And do you think that there is now like a company or another guy out there that can come up with a better system, more reliable, faster, more transactions per second? That you can improve the Bitcoin in many ways. Fees that they charge you, those exchanges and the wallets, definitely there is room for improvement. So when the new technology comes out, everyone might want to switch over to the new technology, and that might even happen before the whole Bitcoin was mined. To be honest, I don't really think this Bitcoin is going to be around within 3, 4, 5 years. Now, I'm not going to make a statement like that because, again, I have no dog in this fight. But my takes on the Bitcoin, it's just a speculation. It's only going to go up, driven by FOMO, fear of missing out. And eventually it's gonna come down. And now today, actually, I was looking at it. Let me pull it up right now. And the Bitcoin now is at 92,600. It used to be 107, I believe. And now from 107 it is down to 92,000, and it was actually down to 91.4 early today. So what's gonna happen is that all it takes is this thing is gonna plummet below 90, and I can see that there's gonna be a first wave of selling. It might drop below 80. This thing might as well go all the way down to 40, 30, 20 again. And that's when MicroStrategy is going to be in a big trouble. Because when MicroStrategy stock price is going to be at $10 a share, what is he going to do? Is he going to dilute more shareholders? What is he going to do? Is he going to do more convertible notes? I really find it hard to believe.
So the reason that the value of scarce, desirable stuff goes up is because it's difficult to manufacture with a factory. You ever go to Hershey's, Pennsylvania, you see a factory and they spit out candy bars, and they spit out candy bars at 50,000 an hour in a box, and you can't create 50,000 candy bars, but they did it very well. That's why they created a company. So if a factory can make it, the price is going down. If a politician can print it or declare it, the price is going down. If technology, or if a robot can create it, if a technologist can make it cheaper, if it's subject to Moore's law, if the AI can spit it out, you don't want to store your,
But once again, it's not the scarcity that is gonna make the Bitcoin valuable. Because again, I can come up with another coin tomorrow and no one is gonna buy it, and that's gonna be scarce too. And anyone can come up with a new cryptocurrency which is capped. It's not that makes it valuable.
your monetary wealth, and anything that human ingenuity or politics creates more of.
He speaks of human ingenuity. It's the whole reason that the Bitcoin is going up is the human ingenuity. And it can go up because, like Einstein put it, there are two things that are infinite: the universe and the human stupidity. And then he said, and I'm not sure about the first. So this thing is being fueled by FOMO and human stupidity and ingenuity, and that's the whole reason why it's going up.
So that just leaves you with things like Da Vinci paintings. You like scare sort of dead people. You you prefer beachfront property in Palm Beach over waterfront.
You don't want to buy art. You don't want to buy any of that. That's not even liquid. It doesn't compare with the Bitcoin at all. I mean, the Bitcoin is being used as a speculation, and it's not being used anywhere like medium of exchange, not even in El Salvador. I visited El Salvador, and very few people use the Bitcoin. I would say between 1% and 5% of the people use the Bitcoin. And I have a whole interview with Uber driver. I was saying that the Bitcoin is not practical. Okay, over there they use the US dollar.
Front, it's harder to create beach than it is to create waterfront. And when you look at those things, an acre of land in Miami Beach has gone up a factor of 1,000 in 100 years. Beachfront property in Palm Beach might have gone up 2,000. I mean, these things went from $10,000 an acre to 20 or 30 or 40 million an acre. So the general idea.
Yeah, but he's comparing Bitcoin to real estate. First, he's saying that Bitcoin is the best, is unique, is rare, it's like nothing else. And now he's comparing it to the real estate. But real estate went up in price because there is a lot of demand, because it's got intrinsic value. You can live in a house, you can rent it out, you can sell it, you can seller finance it, you can do a lease option, you can do all different things with the house that you couldn't do with the Bitcoin.
Is the currency supply is increasing. There are certain scarce desirable assets that are not increasing very fast. Bitcoin is hard capped. It's not increasing at all. So why is it going up to 13 million coin? Well, for the last 10 years, it's been appreciating 60% a year on average. For the past 4 years, 60% a year. Okay?
And so what? Because it went up over the past 4 years, it does not mean that it is gonna keep going up forever. Okay, there is no evidence. He's taking the intervals of time over the past 2 years, or the past 4 years, or the past 6 years, but that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that it keeps going up at the same rate, not even close to that. It might actually plummet. It might actually come down crashing hard, that it will never recover from it.
Okay, the S&P index is increasing about 15% a year for the past 4 years. The money supply, the dollar, is increasing somewhere between 7 and 10% a year, maybe 10% a year for the past 4 years. So once you understand that, Bitcoin is simpler, more thermodynamically sound than an equity portfolio. Right? The thing that's going up a bit faster than the inflation rate is a diversified portfolio of high-quality companies like Tesla and Apple and Google and the like. They can maybe outperform a couple of percent due to human ingenuity and robots and AI and Moore's law, technology. But companies have attack surfaces. So companies have counterparty risks. The risk factors of companies are: they might get sued for antitrust. China doesn't like NVIDIA. Europe might tax Apple. A union might unionize Amazon.
Yeah, but a government can ban Bitcoin. It's already happening in China, I believe, in India. There are a whole bunch of countries that the Bitcoin was banned.
U.S. government might sue Microsoft, right? If it's a really good company, it's going to get a regulatory onslaught. And if it's a bad company, it's going to get crushed by a bigger company. And then maybe it just gets...
The Bitcoin is not going to get crushed by a better technology or a bigger technology. Same thing. I mean, the Bitcoin, all it is a string of numbers. You know, it does not have any intrinsic value. I hope I emphasize this enough. It's a typical pyramid scheme hidden behind the technology.
Gets unlucky because of a war or famine or a hurricane or bad weather. Or maybe you're located in a city and the tax rate triples. And so there's a parade of horribles that cause you to lose money on a corporate investment or a financial investment. Or maybe you have the best company in the world and it happens to be in Venezuela. And the government changes. Or, you know, the people used to have really good companies in Cuba. And then Castro took over. And then all of a sudden it becomes illegal, or the currency collapses, or they expropriate your property of the best oil company in Venezuela, and then the government...
But the problem is not the currency of Venezuela or Cuba, is that there are reasons behind the currency collapse. You know, if a country is made out of idiots and the currency collapse, it doesn't mean that there was something bad with the currency, okay?
Takes it. Okay, or maybe you have a great company in Russia and the currency collapses like it did in '98, or maybe you have a great company in Brazil and the currency collapses like it did about 30 years ago. And so things that are in the real world, things that are subject to political fate or weather or war or famine or competition, or maybe you have the world's greatest photo company like Kodak, oops, or Xerox. Right?
Yeah, but his company is gonna have the same ending as Kodak and Xerox. At least they were making a product. He's not doing anything. His core business is losing money. His software company is not worth a damn. It's actually losing money if you pull up the income statement. And all he's got for himself is this Bitcoin. But what is going to happen? What is going to happen when the Bitcoin price crashes down? What is he going to do? There is nothing in his control. Buy more Bitcoin? He bought Bitcoin. I think he bought 2,000 more Bitcoin today, I believe. Today is December 30th. And the price of Bitcoin went down. It was down to 91.5.
The world's full of examples of really great companies and maybe really great product. Maybe you had great land, maybe you own buildings, but the buildings were in Egypt and there's a coup. Or maybe the buildings were in downtown Afghanistan, you know, in Kabul. Oops. Okay, so what is Bitcoin? Well, it's not in the real world. It's not a company. There's no counterparty risk to a company, no counterparty risk to a culture, no counterparty risk to a currency, no counterparty risk to a creditor, right? You're stripping away counterparty risks. And so when you strip away all the risk, you get pure digital property. Why is it going to go up?
And Bitcoin doesn't have a risk. Do I have to go over all that again? So now no one is going to invest in real estate, no one is going to invest in a company, no one is going to buy stocks because it's got entropy and Bitcoin doesn't. So everyone now is going to buy the Bitcoin. Don't invest in real estate, don't build a house, don't buy a company, don't invest in your own company, just buy the Bitcoin. I don't know where the universe is gonna go.
Go up? It's going to go up because capital is flowing from the more entropic state, from the state of anxiety and risk and confusion toward the more ordered state, a less risky state. Think of water at the top of a mountain. Why does the water flow downhill? Accidental? The waterfall. scary turbulence, but what if it stops? It's flowing downhill because of physics, because it's a lower energy state for the water to be at sea level than for the water to be 1 mile up. Why is money flowing into Bitcoin? Well, I'm going to take all your money, put it in random countries and random banks in Africa. Maybe I spirit it with a magic spell, and then I say, okay, it's Monday morning, your money's in random banks and random countries in Africa. Would you like to bring it back to the U.S., or would you like to leave it there? Right? Accidental? No. You're going to bring it back to a place you feel comfortable. Capital flows to security. It flows to where it's treated the best. And so money is flowing, capital, I'm using money as a phrase for long-term capital. It's flowing into Bitcoin because it's running away from Russia, and it's running away from China, and it's running away from Africa, and it's running...
Yeah, and what happens with Russia is now they're going around the sanctions by doing all the international payments with the Bitcoin. So pretty much all the sanctions, the Russia was locked out from the SWIFT system, all of that has no consequences on Russia because they can use the Bitcoin. So again, it's being used for all the wrong reasons.
Running away from Venezuela and Cuba, and it's running away from South America. It's even running away from Europe. If you ask the Europeans, the very simple test, do you prefer the digital dollar or the digital euro? 99 to 1, they prefer the dollar to the euro. In their own country, they don't want the euro. Everybody wants the dollar. Everybody wants to live in the U.S. Everybody.
How is it that Venezuela, like the Bitcoin, they don't even have the money to put food on the table? The inflation is so high, they're making $5, $6, $10 a month. Only to buy a piece of meat might run you like $20. They don't even have savings or anything. Do you think they're gonna go and put their money in the Bitcoin? They can lose more money putting in the Bitcoin than keeping it in Bolivares. And it's not even Bolivares because they want the US dollar.
Everybody wants their property in the safe apex network of the world. So capital is flowing into Bitcoin at 60%. The traditional method of storing your long-term capital is the S&P index is 15%. What's going to happen is that more and more capital is going to flow from the 15% to the 60%. More capital is going to flow from the 20th century to the 21st century. You got $1 billion of warehouses built in 1980. They're rusting. Right? They're falling apart. You're going to have to rebuild them. You want to rebuild them for another 40-year run, you want to put it into Bitcoin. Right? So money flows from the past to the future. Money flows from physical to digital. Money flows from high risk to low risk. Money flows
from high risk to low risk. And putting your money in the Bitcoin that can change any minute, so volatile, is not risky. No.
Insecure to secure, money flows from the east to the west.
Guys, when you buy a Bitcoin, always remember that you are trading real money, which is the US dollar, for something that we don't even know what it is. Okay? You can pay your taxes with the US dollar, you can do anything, you can get out of the house, go buy whatever you want. You can buy online everything that you want with the US dollar. And when you buy the Bitcoin, really there is no certainty of what's gonna do. Okay, and then if you need to make a purchase, you still have to convert again the Bitcoin to the US dollar. And by doing that, you're gonna then incur to a double taxation.
Bitcoin simply represents the highest form, the least disorderly, least risky form of property rights. The 60% will track toward the 15%. So over time, the S&P index and Bitcoin will head toward each other. So what do I expect? I think Bitcoin, as it gets bigger, it goes from 60% growth rate to 58, to 55, to 52, to 50, to 48, to 38, to 35, to 33. You know, and And the traditional world, the 150 trillion dollars of traditional equities is basically a 15 percenter or 12 to 15 percenter. They'll start to incorporate Bitcoin. Maybe they'll start to creep up toward Bitcoin, but they'll also struggle with all the entropic risk and competition and weather and war and famine. So they're always going to struggle. Bitcoin's going to become half the size of equity. It'll start to head up toward the size of equity. And then there's...
But he doesn't have any evidence of this. I don't understand how he can make a claim that the size of Bitcoin, that I believe right now it's about 1.7 trillion. I'm not sure, but something like that. And it's gonna reach to the level to be like the equity market or the bond market or even the gold market. And for that reason, that if you do the math, then it appears that a single Bitcoin can be worth much more than what it is now. But he doesn't have any concrete evidence to state that the crypto market is gonna grow up to be about the same size of the gold market or the equity market. He's making an assumption saying that if the crypto market cap is gonna grow to be like the gold, well then the price of Bitcoin is gonna go up. But again, this is just an assumption that doesn't have any fundament.
$300 trillion of fixed income, bonds, preferred stocks, all sorts of ETFs that hold fixed income instruments, currency equivalents, sovereign debt. That yields about 5% right now. So 5% before tax, maybe 3 or 4% after tax. So as people get more comfortable with Bitcoin, they're going to move money toward Bitcoin, and then companies like MicroStrategy, well, we're going to create an equity that pulls capital from the equity capital markets, from the Magnificent Seven, from the S&P. It'll flow into MicroStrategy stock. And then we will create bonds, and the bonds will pay you twice as much or 3 times as much as the bonds in the traditional capital market. So as we issue those bonds, the capital that's in fixed income will jump onto a Bitcoin-backed bond, and the equity will jump onto a Bitcoin-backed equity. And over time, you've got $500 trillion of this traditional capital. Think of it as sitting up on that mountaintop, and it wants to go to ground. It wants to go to a simpler, more elegant, less risky, less disordered state, a lower energy state. Water goes from steam.
And the Bitcoin is a low energy state? Oh my gosh, it's 300 grand to mine one of them. I don't know how it's a low energy state. But the thing about the Bitcoin too is, if I am getting this right, mining a Bitcoin takes up a lot of power and a lot of computational energy. And it's a lengthy process, and it's the award to solve a very complicated mathematical equation. So I always wonder if mathematicians and miners are gonna be the next billionaires. If that's the case, if it was worth it to mine a Bitcoin, and if it was the reward for a mathematical equation, well then miners should be the richest people on the planet, and they're not, because if you pull up the fundamentals of those mining companies, they all lose money, and those are public record, because those are public company. So I don't really see, if it was indeed the case, why is it not the mathematicians are the richest people on the planet?
You go from steam to water, and you go from water to ice, and every time you change that phase, an enormous amount of energy gets given up, and if you want to go the other way, you have to put energy into it, right? You have to cook the ice to get it to be water, you have to boil the water to get it to be steam. So this is all just economic physics or thermodynamics, and what do I think? I think over 21 years, Bitcoin goes from 60% ARR down to 20% ARR. And if you blend it, it's like an average of 29% ARR. And if you crank 29% ARR into a 21-year model, that takes you from where Bitcoin was, which was about 55,000 a coin in the middle of 2024, when I was at Bitcoin Nashville, and I gave that speech, and I gave that forecast. Bitcoin was about 55,000 or 60,000. And it just climbs up with some volatility. It surges up, it crashes down, it surges up, it crashes down, serpentine.
And what is going to happen when it crashes down and it's never going to come back? Because there is a huge chance of that. I mean, he's playing on this volatility thing, but I mean, there is no evidence. The Bitcoin might just have one last crash to where if everyone is gonna sell by the bulk, this Bitcoin might go down to 5 grand to where it's history. No one would want to have anything to do with the Bitcoin, and that's exactly what's gonna happen. People are gonna get tired of it.
And it climbs to 13 million a coin in the year 2045, and as it climbs, it becomes a greater amount of the world's capital. Instead of being $2 trillion, it becomes $280 trillion. But the amount of wealth in the world goes from 900 trillion to 4,000 trillion. And there's a lot of bonds, and there's a lot of real estate, there's a lot of equity. And it's not like Bitcoin eats everything. It's just like Bitcoin goes from being a tenth of 1% of the world's wealth, to being 7% of the world's wealth. There's something like that, And for people who want to play with that, if you Google Bitcoin 24, you'll find the model on GitHub. You can go download the model. You can crank in your assumptions about inflation and innovation rates and all the monetization and demonetization of the asset classes. And you'll come to your own, bull case and bear case and base case where Bitcoin is headed. But, at the end of the day, the big idea is half the money in the world is just long-term capital. People just want to preserve their wealth. I mean, it's the greatest use case in the world is wealth preservation. I just want to take my money and I want to put it in a savings account in cyberspace. I want a bank in cyberspace that won't rip me off. And I want to buy an asset that
How they're not going to rip you off? More people lost the Bitcoin than anything else, with hackers and stolen keys, frauds, dark web.
Entrepreneur can make more of, no AI can make more of, no politician can make more of. I want to know I'm buying 1/21 millionth of all of the money in the bank for the next 1,000 years, and I don't want a management.
But what is going to happen when all the Bitcoin was mined? What is going to happen? Let's say that he's got 10% of all of the Bitcoin. And now I do know this Satoshi Nakamoto, he's got 5% of all the Bitcoin in his wallet. But let's even say that 10% MicroStrategy owns it, 20% BlackRock, 20% Fidelity. Now you get the point. What are they going to do with it? What are they going to do with it? There are going to be people who are going to lose their key, and they're going to lose their Bitcoin. There is going to be less and less and less Bitcoin. And but what are they going to do with it? Because it's not used as a medium of exchange. And by the time that happens, probably there is going to be a new technology to replace the Bitcoin. And again, what are they going to do with it? They might be rich on paper, but again, they're going to have then to convert it again in the US dollar and pay capital gains on it, or they're going to sell it to themselves. MicroStrategy sells it to BlackRock and the prices goes up a little bit. Then BlackRock sells it to Fidelity and the price goes up a little bit. Fidelity sells it back to MicroStrategy. But there is no market. There is no massive adoption of this thing. It's only a speculation asset that people are buying it. Only they don't want to miss the opportunity. But there is no intrinsic value. There is no use. There will never be.
And they can kind of freeze my assets, steal my money, debase the currency. And so Bitcoin is a very simple idea, and that I think is my elaborate explanation for why I think it's going to 13 million a coin, with plus or minus, that was my base case.
Exactly, and so to put a cap on this, just for clarity, that based on your assumptions, that was your base case, meaning there's a bull case over 13 million, and what was the bear case?
I think the range was from 3 million to 49 million.
Right.
I mean, it's going to millions a coin, and it could be tens of millions a coin, right?
If you're interested in making money with crypto, click subscribe for a daily video keeping you informed. And like always, see you tomorrow.